Hi, this video is designed to give you an idea of how sociologists and social scientists try to get at insight. What do I mean by insight? Insight means going beyond the original numbers. And I want to give an example of one study and show you how the percentages which we get in the beginning don't reveal the entire story. You'll see here some candies on the table. They represent the population that was surveyed. The question was, how many families have elderly living with them? And it was the population of the United States. They took a sample that represented the entire country, different ethnic groups. And there were four ethnic groups. There were whites, Hispanics, African Americans, and Asians. But the numbers that were announced were for the whole population, everybody mixed in together. So let us say the number was, for argument's sake, 30% of American households have elderly living with them. In other words, the elderly are not put in homes. Now, the government, if it wanted to increase this number, would need an education program to encourage families to keep their elderly mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers, fathers with them longer. How would it go about doing that? Is this number enough to indicate to the government what kind of program to put together? Not really. Because this population does not indicate the preferences of these four individual groups. Perhaps the numbers may be quite different when we look at the results by race and ethnic group. And we did do that and came up with some surprising numbers. Let us say these are the whites, Hispanics, African Americans, and Asians. I picked the colors at random. 30% would mean that this many from each group would have elderly living with them. That's what the numbers would say. But when we check by ethnic group, when we check the results by ethnic group, we see that they are quite different. In these three groups, the numbers are about 40. But in this group, the white group, the numbers are much less. So you see, when you average all the numbers, you get an aggregate 30%, but when you look at them by ethnic group, you see that whites are 50% as likely to have elderly in their homes as do the other three groups. So if you're going to have an education project to increase caretaking of the elderly in homes, you would want to understand why is it that in this particular group there are less, and why is it that in these groups there are more. So you would have to do further research. For example, a good question to ask would be, what is the work situation of these four different groups? Could it be that in this group there are more two working adults, meaning nobody home to take care of the elderly? Another question you would want to ask is, what are the traditions of each ethnic group? Could it be that these three groups have a tradition within their religion, within their social norms, that the elderly live with the family into old age, whereas this group may have a different tradition? Another question to ask would be, what are the desires of the elderly? Could it be that in this group, the elderly prefer not to stay with their families and to be either living alone or living in homes? Which would then take us to a further question. The question that brings us in direct relationship with a concept of cultural preference. Could it be that some of these ethnic groups are interdependent, meaning family life is very valued. The life of the extended family is very valued, whereas some are independent, which might be the case here. So the original number, which was 30% right across the board, changes when we start looking at all these other variables, indicators, and influential agents. We call these influential agents. Look at what happens to the graph when we go by ethnic groups. They're not even. Here we have the white group, which is significantly different from the others. So in sociology, it is a good idea to look at the aggregate data, all mixed in, and then use questions that are hopefully in the original survey, such as age, ethnic group, income level, whether you work or not, and to get at the deeper insights that reveal a principle in sociology that should never be forgotten. It also applies in psychology and social psychology and just about every other social science. The fact that correlation does not indicate cause and effect. Because there is a correlation between the entire population's aggregate data regarding elderly living at home, does not indicate what are the causes of elderly staying with their families and what are the causes of them not staying in their families. To get at real cause and effect, we have to do further research, and we may never find the real cause. All we do is find indicators. And in advanced methodology, we see which of the indicators are the strongest by doing statistical measurements. So you see, dealing with a couple of small things isn't going to give you the whole answer. And that is where sociology becomes extremely exciting, because there you are practicing what is called insight sociology, digging deeper, and at every level understanding society better than you did before.